All right, today we're going to be analyzing Frank Ocean's astrological birth chart. First, we're going to look at the spiritual path of his consciousness. Then we're going to look at the psychological blocks that are holding him back from moving along that spiritual evolutionary path. And finally, we're going to go through the alchemy or the transformational process I would recommend to him if you're one of my clients. So let's start off with the astrology. So to determine anyone's spiritual path, and in this case, Frank Ocean's, we want to look at the south node and the north node. So Ketu Rahu. Now, we don't know what time he was born, so disregard the houses, but we know the day, so we can focus on the signs, which are most important anyway. And also the planets that are with Ketu and Rahu, which are also very important. So his south node, Ketu, is in Libra with Mars. Now, the south node is the part of the chart, wherever it is in the chart, the place that we are most spiritually evolved, the place where we have a lot of experience in past lives developing over many lifetimes. So for Frank Ocean, he's had a lot of experience in Libra. Libra is all about exchange, trade, relationships, could even be romance, but at the core of Libra is win-win exchanges or trades. And with Mars, the seat of our anger, our will, our power, aggressiveness. Also, think of Mars, the warrior, fighting, power, the strong conquering the weak. So interesting enough, you have the Lord of Aries, Mars, with Ketu. And when that happens, you have somebody who is already well developed in moving along their spiritual path or evolving their consciousness. So Frank Ocean has come into this incarnation already having an ability or skill from moving from his south node to his north node. That means he's going to be spending a lot more time in Libra with his south node than up here with Rahu, north node, in Aries. But having this configuration, it means that Frank Ocean is already diplomatic. He already has a knack, a comfort with exchanging with other people, getting what he needs from other people by giving something of value he has. That's another aspect of Libra is I have something of value, I'm going to give it to somebody else so they can give me something that I need, and we both benefit. That's Libra. Now, because of this, we could see this in his career, where he started off with Odd Future, was part of a group, really well-versed in connecting with different creatives, but in this incarnation, since he has the north node in Aries, that means that he's meant to move towards a more martial energy. What does Aries represent? Like I just said before, the strong conquering the weak, power, supremacy, individualism, moving along your own path, getting what you need through your own self-effort and will. And that's exactly what he did in his career, right? He started off with Odd Future, which was more of a Libra energy, but then was able to move towards his Aries relatively quickly to pave his own path as a solo artist because he has Mars with Ketu. So he already has a lot of experience with that martial energy. He also has Jupiter in Aries with his Rahu. Again, Rahu, our north node, is the least developed part of our chart. It's where our consciousness needs to go to grow as a person, to grow as an individual. Jupiter is our creativity, our abundance, our joy, our passion, purpose. So in this incarnation, the more that Frank moved towards his individual path as a solo artist, he was able to tap in more into his creativity. And that was kind of seen by the fact that he was making much better music when he was alone as a solo artist than he was with Odd Future. And he got way more success, right? When he broke off and did his own thing, which is signified by Aries. Now, no matter how much we may seem that we've developed our Rahu North Node area, it's never perfect. So that means that Frank is going to be, agreeable because of his Libra nature. He might find it difficult to be alone or pave his own path. He also might find certain parts of himself not feeling joyful, or he might feel disconnected from his purpose. You can kind of see this with the fact that he's so reclusive. He creates these masterpieces and then disappears for years upon years on end. And that may be due to the fact that he's not getting the fulfillment, the joy that he thought he would get because of that Rahu-Jupiter conjunction. He's looking for more purpose. He's looking for something greater. As soon as he accomplishes something, he's looking for something else that'll give him joy, peace, contentment, meaning, purpose. So what are the psychological blocks that are holding him back from continuing his spiritual evolution? Anger. And in more particular, repressed anger. Because when you have a Ketu-Mars conjunction, you have somebody that is hiding, concealing their anger. Ketu hides things, whatever planet it's with, it's going to be very restrictive. It's going to hide it and suppress it. So, there's stories of Frank Ocean getting in confrontations and actually even he's open to the fact of leading to violent conflict. I think it was maybe a rapper or somebody called him out. So Frank Ocean is definitely peaceful on the outside, but internally he has a lot of fire. He's a lot of martial energy. He's very comfortable in that space. So don't let the very, sage-like, stoic, soft exterior confuse you or fool you. He very much is about that action and very much has the ability, the capacity for violence. And because of that Ketu-Mars conjunction, he's going to have a lot of repressed anger. That's anybody with a Mars South Node conjunction. Avoidant attachment. This is based off of the fact that he has an avoidant attachment style with his audience. The 7th house represents our partners, but it also represents the public. Now, we don't know what house the planets are in, but I'm kind of going off of the philosophy of the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So the way that a person treats their fans or the public is also how they'll treat their partners in the opposite sex. Fun fact. So to learn about, what is his relationship part of himself? Well, we know Libra here, so he has some experience being able to give things of value in exchange, win-win situations. But Venus, the Lord of Libra, also the planet that represents our relationships with other people, is starved. It's with the Sun. Sun-Venus conjunctions are not good. Now, it's with Mercury, which helps it. He's able to use his intellect, communication to benefit his relationships. It's delighted by being with Mercury, but it's starved in a very painful sign of Scorpio. Scorpio is a very deep, intense, brooding sign. And to have the Sun starving Venus, because whenever the Sun and Venus are in the same sign, they starve each other because they're enemies. They don't like each other. So when they're in the same sign together, they starve each other. They hurt each other. It's almost like they're fighting. In Scorpio, which is the most painful sign of our inner demons, our trauma, our fears, he has a deep-seated fear of intimacy and connection, especially when it comes to sex, because Scorpio also represents sex. So because of this fear of intimacy, this fear of truly connecting with another person, and the frustration and anger that comes from that Sun with Venus, he's going to have an avoidant attachment style. He's going to keep people at arm's length, emotionally, psychologically, and also physically. And he'll probably be prone to isolation or hiding. Now, again, because that Mercury's there, he's not going to be overly pathological with it. There's going to be a little bit of balance because Mercury helps out Venus in Scorpio. But to have a negative a negative dynamic in such a painful sign, there's a lot of pain when it comes to sexuality, intimacy, relationships, and romance, which leads to his avoidant attachment with his partners and the public. Finally, savior complex. Now, this comes from the fact that his Mars is aspecting Saturn. Now, Mars and Saturn is not an enemy of Mars, but Mars is an enemy of Saturn. So Mars can kind of see there's a light aspect of Mars to Saturn, but it's still there, which means that Mars is going to be agitating and starving Saturn. Saturn's also our traumas, our fears, but it also represents, most importantly, Saturn represents our ego and the things that are not us. It's the part of our life that we need to let go of. And when you have Mars looking at Saturn, starving Saturn, the part of ourselves that undergoes or takes action to get the things we need, When Mars is looking at Saturn, starving Saturn, you have a person like Frank, like myself as well, because I also have my Mars starving Saturn. You have a person that involves themselves in things that are not for them. They'll put energy into fixing problems that are not theirs to solve. That's the most key defining problem or aspect of a Mars starving Saturn, is somebody will try to fix problems that are not meant to be fixed. Now, a lot of times that can involve fixing other people's problems or trying to fix other people's problems, because when you try to fix someone else's problems, you end up always doing more harm than good, because their problems are for them to figure out. You may help guide them or facilitate the fixing of their problems, but at the end of the day, it's up to that person to heal, to evolve, to fix what is ailing them, right? Nobody likes it when somebody gets in your business and tries to micromanage your own life. Like, fuck off, this is my life. I had to learn that the hard way. So he's gonna have this savior complex, this belief that he needs to help people who don't want to be helped deep down. They might pretend or present like they want to be helped, but not really. There also might be parts of his life, certain problems in his life, that are not meant to be solved. They're just things that are meant to be endured, right? I don't know exactly the details of his life, but an example of this would be if somebody passes away, it's not a problem you can fix, you just have to endure. But you might put energy into suppressing those emotions or trying to fix the problem through other areas unconsciously, falling into addiction or falling into bad habits. So that is very much Frank Ocean's Achilles heel, is probably having a savior complex, just based off of that Mars-Saturn aspect. Now, what would I recommend to Frank to fix or heal? Say heal, transform these psychological blocks. Inner warrior. So the inner warrior correlating with the repressed anger. It's all about tapping into the part of yourself that can integrate, but also channel your anger towards productive means, not repressing it, not hiding it from the world, but directing it towards exercise, martial arts, physical activity, setting boundaries, moving towards your goals, right? I know multiple people that have a Mars Ketu conjunction and they can have problems with motivation. I feel like we can kind of see that with Frank, that he might have some of his fire being suppressed because of that Mars Ketu conjunction. So going inside of himself, doing the inner work to tap into that part of himself. Also inner parents. People don't like to hear this, but when it comes to our relationships, especially romantic, it begins and ends with our parents. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to heal your relationship with your parents in the real world, in the external three-dimensional space, but you have to heal your relationship with your parents internally. So if he has an avoidant attachment, that most likely means that a parent was avoidant or distant, or not able to give him what he needed as a kid. And that led to him having an avoidant attachment. So whatever parent or both that led to this wound where he feels like he has to protect himself, his intimacy issues, his trust issues, his inability to fully connect with other people, well, you gotta heal your inner parents. You go inside of yourself, do the work to heal your inner parents. Internally, not externally. Because all that really matters is your relationship with your own inner parents. Not the real world parents have their own stuff to do, right? They have their own work on themselves. You don't have to wait for them to heal and forgive you or accept you. You can accept yourself internally, working with those parts of yourself that have been planted by your real parents. Finally, do less. Very simple. Stop trying to fix other people's problems. If you're trying to fix something and it's not working, you're constantly beating your head over, you're trying to fix something that just won't progress or improve, let it go. It's not a problem for you to solve then. The only problems you're meant to solve are the problems that get better when you put effort and your will into it. When you use your Mars energy, you use logic, reason, right? Focus. When you use those faculties and the problem gets better, continue until it's solved. if you use those faculties, you use your energy, will, logic, reason, right? Focus on something, whether it's your problem or another person's problem, and it stays the same or constantly leads to failure, probably means that it wasn't meant for you. Anyway, thank you for your time. Hope you enjoyed this analysis. Would love to hear your comments. Also, a like and a subscription would be very much appreciated. Cheers.